Hi folks, this is Dr. Rod Justice from HealthQuest Cottonwood. I want to talk to you a little bit today about why we put so much emphasis on the very top vertebra in the spine, the atlas, okay? Now, it's important to realize that the spine has two foundations. First off, there's a structural foundation at the bottom, the pelvis, which is like the foundation on your house. It should be level. Second of all, there is a gravitational foundation at the top of the spine, and that's literally the balance mechanisms in the inner ears. Now the body has to keep those balance mechanisms level with gravity, otherwise it has no idea where it's at. So if the top vertebra becomes misaligned, and I'm going to exaggerate these movements here, if the top vertebra becomes misaligned, if it shifts to one side or the other, the head will literally tilt in response to that because the head is hooked to the shoulder with guide wires. Now, if the head tilts, the balance mechanisms in the inner ear are not level with gravity, and the body has to get those back level at all costs. The first thing it's going to do is it's going to try and use the muscles in the spine to literally try and pull the bones back in a proper position. If it can't, you end up with muscles working without effect, and muscles working without effect leads to a lot of pain and aggravation. So the next thing the body does, if it can't get the bones back in place themselves, it will simply adapt to the bones or to the balance mechanisms in the inner ear being out of level. And what it will do is this: it will literally throw in a tilt in the spine, a little bit of a curve, to get the balance mechanisms back level. And now everything's fine, right? Not quite. Normally, the body likes to keep the center point of the skull over the center point of the pelvis. Generally, if you stand on two separate scales, they should read about the same. Now, if the head tilts and the body compensates for that, how's this person's scales going to read if they're standing on two scales? This side's going to be carrying a lot more weight. In fact, in some cases, may carry 50 or 60% more weight on this side than the other side. Now, eventually, that can lead to hip problems, knee problems, ankle problems, foot problems, all of them together combined. So, what the body will do next is it's got to figure out a way to get the neck, the neck back up straight again, but at the same time, keep the top part level. So you end up with two groups of muscles in the low back opposing each other, and this is how the low back gets involved. One group of muscles in the low back is going to be saying, we got to keep the spine straight. And the other group on the other side is saying, yeah, but we have to keep the top part level. So you get those two groups of muscles working against each other. You get muscles working without effect again. We know how aggravating and painful that is. So eventually they settle out, they find a nice compromise, and the next thing the body has to do is get that center point of the skull back over the center point of the pelvis. So what it does is it takes the structural foundation in the spine and literally throws in a tilt in order to get center point of the skull back over the center point of the pelvis. Now the ears are level, center point over center point, and your spine's a mess. So when we make that adjustment on that top vertebra, the atlas, what we're trying to do is I'm just going to do one of those motions because it's hard to hold that position. If the spine's this way, if we take the top vertebra, put it back in proper relationship with the skull by adjusting it, this situation ends up happening. And now these things aren't level again. So what we're doing is we're going to give that one group of muscles in low back that wants to keep the spine straight, we've just given them the advantage, and it tends to pull the spine back straight again. So that's why we put so much importance on making sure that that atlas is in line and stays in line. It's literally the gravitational foundation of the spine, and it must be kept level at all costs.